The Shire represents that special feeling we all chase after. Comfort. Comfort in knowing that today will be the same as tomorrow. And same goes for the day after that. Somewhere, Merry and Pippin will be stealing fireworks. Bilbo will be writing his magnum opus, and Samwise will be drinking up the courage to talk to Rosie. But unfortunately, the world doesn't have a place for the Shire. But fortunately, we can choose to fight for it. This is The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring.
Hell yeah, dude.
I'm just going to say this right now. Right before I started reading the synopsis, I don't know if we're going to include it in the actual episode. Chris started immediately mocking how I read a synopsis, and it threw my game off completely. I got so upset, and I was like, I don't even know if I should fucking read it now.
No, well, we should do a playback in this episode. Let's just cue a rewind. I'll edit it in.
All right, just give me a 1, 2, 3 test real quick.
1, 2, 3.
Test. All right, cool.
Very few things in life make
okay,
you really fight for loyalty.
You need to fucking stop. Like, not right before. Like, you can't do that right before. Jesus Christ, that pissed me off. That really upset me. I hope you know that. You really fucking got me.
It was too tempting, so I just went for it. By the way, listeners, in case you haven't noticed it yet, I am getting over a cold right now. So that's why my voice might not sound exactly as tip-top as it normally does. But hopefully it's still, hopefully you can still understand it. Hopefully you can endure it.
Welcome to Movies That Changed Us. I'm Altaf.
And I'm Chris.
And today we're going to be talking about how Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring changed us. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or wherever you listen to our podcasts, know that you can also watch us on YouTube at Movies That Changed Us.
So Altaf, tell me, this is my turn to ask you. What art has moved you this past week?
Whenever you get into podcast mode, it just doesn't sound genuine because I know you, and it always feels like you're putting on this like fake showmanship voice. It's so all tough. Like, I think for better or for worse, off mic, I also sometimes talk like I'm on a podcast.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. I think that the critical difference is this is kind of me being genuine. Like, me being snarky is pretty genuine. I think it'd be more disingenuous if I was like, so Altaf, tell me, what have you been checking out?
So let me think. I watched Thunderbolts and I really liked it.
I forgot you watched that.
I haven't seen a Marvel movie that I came out of the theater and was just like excited. I haven't felt that feeling in a while, and I really enjoyed Thunderbolts. Like, it felt like it had actual characters in it, like real people, real emotions, and there were scenes where I'm like, they actually shot on location, and it was a movie, like felt like a real movie in a way that Marvel movies haven't felt like in a while, probably since Guardians 3, in my opinion. Now that is not the one I want to highlight though. I want to highlight, funny enough, because it usually doesn't come from me, a musical artist. So I listened to, people have probably already heard of her. She won a Grammy for, I forgot what the category's called. But Doshi, her song Anxiety's been like trending like crazy on TikTok and Instagram. You've probably heard that specific like Anxiety like song trending somewhere. So my roommate is a fan of hers and was like, yeah, she just won a Grammy. She's really good. You should check her out. So I checked out her album, Alligator Bites Never Heal. Every song is good. Like, it's a true no skips. And I know you and I have very different musical taste, but I'm positive you're going to like her.
Yeah, cool. I didn't tell you about this, but you know what? My family and I have been watching for like the past couple weeks a little bit.
Is this the art that moved you this week?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well, I mean, obviously we're going to talk, I know we're going to talk about Last of Us episodes like, 3 and 4 a little bit because you caught up on it. But I just wanted to throw out something new. We've been watching that show, Your Honor, the one starring Bryan Cranston.
Oh, God, why?
Have you seen it?
Yeah, it's bad.
Because my mom, we've just been watching it over dinner.
I've seen the first season. I guess it is like fun trash TV. Like, it is. It's kind of like reminds me of watching something like Suits, where I'm just like, this is not good, but it's entertaining.
Exactly. It passes the time, you know what I mean? And eventually, like any show, you kind of get a little invested once you get a couple episodes in. You're kind of curious, okay, where are they going to take this? Okay, where's this going? For listeners who don't know Your Honor, just to give a basic service level plot synopsis, Bryan Cranston plays as a judge, a wholesome fatherly type. He has a son. They're grieving the mother figure in the family, Bryan Cranston's wife. His son drives to drop off like a memorial note thing for his mom, and he reaches for his inhaler down because he drops it while he's driving, and he ends up smacking right into a motorcycle. He panics and ends up just fleeing the scene. And basically, though, it turns out that that person that he killed accidentally was the son of a huge criminal figure. So, like, Bryan Cranston helps him cover it up, and it ends up leading to a bigger web of lies trying to cover it up. It's very clearly Breaking Bad coded.
I remember it had such a good premise. That's why I watched it. And the reason I finished the first season was because of, like, I can't believe we're talking about this show. It's such a show that doesn't exist. Like, but
it really came to win, didn't it?
It has 2 seasons, which is what's funny about it. But the reason I stuck through that show is because of what you're saying. I was just like, I need to see where this goes.
yeah, it's not Vince Gilligan quality writing by any means, but it's still like, it passed the time. So point is, though, I've been watching it over the dinner table for most nights. I'm probably like 5 episodes in, nothing super crazy.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, obviously, that I watched is the latest episode of Last of Us, which is getting pretty nuts now. Same deal, can't really spoil it, but I'm really enjoying it. They're making some bigger character changes for particularly Ellie and Dina, and I'm kind of interested in where they go with it on some of the stuff.
Yeah. It's tough to talk about Last of Us just because we're like, every time we talk about it, we're just like, we can't spoil it.
Exactly. So I'm going to keep it quick and simple. But I think the biggest thing I'm observing and a lot of people are talking about is Ellie's tone is a lot different than it was in the game. In the game, Ellie's like mad, brooding Batman basically the whole time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's like, these fuckers are going to pay. Like, that's how she talks virtually the entire second game.
Yeah.
And this one, they tried to play around with it and give her a little bit more dimensions. And I'm hoping they turn the dial a little more, but
it's because, I mean, I know the reason. I feel like I know the reason. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It's a television show, and without spoiling anything, Bella Ramsey is like taking the lead now. And so she has to be the kind of like guiding, beating heart of the show.
Yeah.
And it would be a fucking bummer to tune in each episode and her just be like, fuck her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe so. Huh?
Like, if you're watching a television show, it needs to be a little bit of like people are sitting around a couch each Sunday. Do people every Sunday want to spend, like, will they be able to like spend each week looking at a character that just hates the fucking world every second of the day, you know?
Yeah. It's
in a game it works because in between cutscenes you can fuck up zombies. You know what I mean?
Well, and you're doing the actions too. You're the one going and killing people and all this stuff, so you feel more like, yeah, I'm gonna do it.
I know. Yeah.
So
that's why that's what interests me about that show a lot. Is just like I like watching it as a pure TV show, just because I'm like, oh, it's interesting how they're doing that because it's such a television choice.
Sure.
Okay. Anything else that you want to mention?
No. That's it for me.
Fucking, we talked about Your Honor.
Yeah, man.
That's so, no, I'm just like, no, I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying, like, I didn't think anyone would ever talk about that show.
No, you can always count on me to bring random shit up, man.
Even television, you just have this, like, yeah, remember that Showtime show that doesn't exist anymore? I watched it. Well, Chris, this is a big one. How did Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring change you?
I've said this many times in the show before, so forgive me, listeners, if this is repetitive, but this is a movie that takes on a new meaning as I get older.
Yeah.
I think, but if there's a movie that this applies to, it is abso-fucking-lutely Lord of the Rings. I first saw this movie when I was 6 years old. I saw it in theaters when it came out.
You saw it in theaters? Wow.
Fuck yeah, I saw it in theaters. And I was too young to really follow the plot or understand like any lore. I knew the basic premise of they had the ring and the ring is evil and they had to destroy it, but I didn't follow Sauron and his spirit being in the ring and all this stuff. There was still a charm to it, and also like a level of scale that 6-year-old me could not fathom when that movie came out.
Yeah, there
was something about it. There was like nothing like it at the time when it comes to like that level of battle scenes and action, combined with CGI that in my opinion still holds up tremendously to this day. And and characters and emotional stakes, and the movie was so fucking long for me as a kid. But getting older though, yeah, I mean, it's one of those movies I hear the music and I immediately want to cry. Like still to this day, I hear it and I immediately get choked up, and it makes me think of my own relationship with my friends, or what, how much loyalty and companionship play a role in my life, and how getting through hard times is important. There's so much like rich emotion to it. And so, overall, I'm very excited to get into it with you.
Yeah, it's the da na 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 na. Right when that plays, it's such a warm blanket, even though the movie is so grim at times. The way it changed me, it's funny. I always feel like because I asked the initial question to you, I have to now ask it to myself, which is always like a funny thing about this podcast. So the way it changed me was I didn't watch these movies until high school. So
okay.
I was a late bloomer when it came to these movies. To give people context, when it came to my nerddom, I watched Star Wars. I like Star Wars. My fantasy nerddom was towards Harry Potter. I was a big Harry Potter kid, and I read all the books and I watched all the movies. And so that's where all like my focus was. You know what I mean? And Lord of the Rings was always this other side of fandom that I just wasn't a part of. And then high school, I finally watched them. Like everyone, they're just undeniable. I loved them, but it was like, okay, cool. I watched that. That was fine. It wasn't until like my my adulthood, like basically these past like 5-10 years, where I grew to appreciate them for what they are. And we'll talk about that later on in this episode. And it still didn't emotionally hit me until like last year, maybe, when I rewatched the extended edition trilogy after I moved to this new place. And I always knew Samwise is the friend we want, and like it's so emotional and it's so big. Like I knew what people said about Lord of the Rings, and when I watched it, I would have this feeling of like, yes, they're right, it's good. And I didn't feel anything until like last year. And I want to talk about that throughout this episode of why it like took so long to hit me emotionally. But
yeah, I'm curious about that for sure.
But now I can't watch these movies without breaking into tears like at least one time.
I saw like a meme once that was like, it was like a meter of like your experience watching all the Lord of the Rings movies. And it'd be like crying. Did you know Viggo Mortensen actually broke his toe? Crying. Like that's all it was. Totally. Which that's not till Two Towers. So we'll cover that later. But I thought that was funny. It's a universally accepted emotion though, watching these movies. So, I mean, it makes sense. I'm sure all listeners can relate to that. We all have had emotional experiences with it. And it's funny because it's such like a seemingly, I don't want to sound condescending when I say childish, but it has a lot of playfulness to it, especially Fellowship in particular, when they're in the Shire with Merry and Pippin. They're, are you guys digging in, stealing from the farm, whatever, right? There's a lot of like kind of childlike humor that comes with it in the Hobbits and the shenanigans they get up to. This
movie is a mainstream blockbuster that's like the perfect 4-quadrant. I mean, maybe there's some people that just don't like fantasy and it just won't hit them the same way. But it's such a 4-quadrant movie, right? And I feel like those type of movies today don't try to be sincere, they try to be cool. So even like the humor in this movie is different than the humor would be today, because the humor today comes from a snarky and a little bit of a like sarcastic place, where the humor in these movies come from this like evergreen, just like, oh, they don't want me to live too long, oh my god, Merry and Pippin stole the fireworks, and it just feels fun and goofy, but it's not trying to be like above anything, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it very much wears its heart on its sleeve.
And I think that's why it stands out too. It's just like, even the jokes don't feel like they're there to just like point out something that maybe the audience is thinking.
Oh no, yeah. This movie does not fuck around when it comes to like just being a movie. It doesn't have any desire to act like it's cooler than what it is, especially with how many like everyone always, everyone makes gay jokes about Frodo and Sam and all that stuff.
I want to talk about that because I've talked to you about like this feeling that I feel like people have whenever two men in a movie are achingly sincere towards each other. I'm not trying to throw around the word like homophobia or anything because I don't think it's that.
Oh, but if there's a movie that deals with that, not deals with it, but that has like a conversation around that sort of thing, it is Lord of the Rings for sure.
What I was going to say though is that like I think people have this like immediate when two men on screen that are straight love each other and express their love towards each other, it's immediately like they're so gay, dude. And it's like and I know people aren't trying to be like hateful or spiteful. They're saying it in even a loving way, but it says something I feel like about specifically, I know specifically America, I feel like deals with this because RRR came out and dealt with the same thing. Immediately we're like, they're so gay. They love each other. And I'm like, it's interesting that when two straight men just show love for each other, it's immediately taken to that expression.
I mean, we didn't have to have a full toxic masculinity conversation, but this movie, if there's a movie that people use as the template for positive masculinity, it's the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Not only just because it shows two men having, like you said, having an intimate friendship that is unapologetic. They don't do the whole, like you said, they don't try to point it out or make a thing of it, but it also shows men dealing with trauma and dealing with grief and crying to each other and hugging each other when they need support and giving each other moments to breathe and being hurt and being emotionally wounded through things. Like it doesn't shy away from any of that. Even in small visuals, I always loved, like, this isn't related to like masculinity, but it's something that Peter Jackson just does amazing in these movies is he's so present with the characters and where they're at physically and emotionally consistently. And I remember when it cut to the close-up of Frodo's hands at the prancing pony when they're all sitting at like the little table together. And I forgot why they cut to a close-up. I don't know if maybe he was playing with the ring or attempted to put the ring on, but you can see his fingernails were dirty.
Oh, yeah. He was playing with the ring. I remember that scene.
Yeah, and I love that. Like, they didn't have to do that. You know what I'm saying? But it, like, oh, that's a lived-in person. Not just the set environment that was lived in, but that's a person that's been living in that world that has a garden and that touches things because they're hobbits and they walk around barefoot with their big, hairy feet. Of course, they're going to have dirty hands.
Oh, yeah. I texted you that it's jarring seeing Frodo happy and dancing in this movie.
I know, in the first one, particularly. You're late.
But like when it cuts to Bilbo's party and he's like prancing around telling Samwise to go talk to Rosie, I'm like, knowing where it goes, I'm like, Frodo, you're never going to be this happy again. Like you will go through the worst things imaginable, the hardest things imaginable. Yeah. Buddy, this is kind of it for you. And even jumping to Return of the King, he still doesn't get back to that place. Like he still never reaches that level of like happiness and comfort again.
Yeah, I think the closest we get, not to fully jump around to Return, but is that final moment of Frodo when he smiles at his friends before he leaves. That's like the first time from the beginning that he genuinely smiles is when he's leaving.
Yeah.
But even afterwards, though, yeah, like you said, throughout the whole movie, Frodo really gets the short end of the stick. He gets poisoned by a blade, he gets captured, he gets beaten up, gets poisoned again by a giant spider, he gets manipulated by this evil ring. Like, he goes through a lot in these movies.
Yeah, it's definitely tough to talk about these movies without mentioning the others because they are such of a piece. Like they're one unit.
Yeah, this trilogy feels like very much like a true Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3 to one big movie. Like the fact that this one ends with Frodo deciding, I'm going to go and bring the ring to Mount Doom on my own. Like, that's a break into Act 2 that a normal movie would have. But they just stretched it the fuck out into one long movie, which, speaking of which, I just watched the extended edition for the first time. Is that what you're going to get to? I saw your little hand reach up. You've been recommending me the extended edition of these movies for a while, so I still haven't seen the extended versions of Two Towers and Return of the King. I really liked it still. I was surprised by, like, it wasn't that much different than I thought it was going to be. Like, really, the first half, from what I noticed, maybe there's a lot in the second half I didn't notice because I'm not as, like, intimately familiar with the second half. But a lot of the first half is where the changes are made, and then it feels like virtually the same movie for me when I get to the second half.
Yeah, no, it's especially Fellowship, the extended edition is not too different. The biggest difference, like, that's people have pointed out is, like, the opening where you see like the life of a hobbit, you know what I mean?
Yeah. You know,
That's
with Bilbo writing everything, and yeah.
I remember you texted me, and I don't know if you can cut this out because you haven't said this yet. You did say that some of the parts just felt like an extended TV show.
Yeah, and I didn't mean that in a bad way. I was just saying like it felt like almost like the same movie, but with like annotations with like extra lore. You know, this way kind of TV shows have more room to do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like every moment that I noticed was an extra bit. I was like, oh, I understand why they cut that. I'm not judging. I think the movie is stronger with that, but I understand why they cut that from like a basic, like kind of making it more structured. Yeah, like I said, though, the biggest addition that I really liked was when Frodo and Sam were leaving and they see all the elves that were traveling to leave Middle Earth.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Because that wasn't in the original. And I remember noticing, oh, they're planting the seed of where Frodo ends up going in the third movie. Like they're actually doing like a setup and payoff a little bit. So I did really like that one.
Yeah, I think I just like spending time with these characters. So more of me getting to spend time with these characters is always going to be a good thing. Yeah, I think the biggest theme that I wanted to start with this movie is how, I guess it's maybe not like a big theme, but it's like the through line of this movie and all these movies is no one really wants to be a hero. Like, especially like Frodo and Sam and like the hobbits, like they don't want to be heroes. Right?
Oh, yeah, that's a recurring thing in Hobbits in general. I mean, they cover the same thing in the story of The Hobbit. The idea that, like, I'm just going to be this recluse and live the nice, simple life. But, you know, it poses the question of sometimes, like, we are called upon things, whether we really want to or not. And it's not really fair, but, like, sometimes you got to get shit done if you want to, like, actually contribute.
So you said the abridged version of Gandalf's quote just now, what you just said.
Yeah.
Unintentionally, you just said like a more millennial version of what Gandalf said. You're like, sometimes you just gotta get shit done.
Frodo. Imagine if he said that at the Mines of Moria. He's like, yo, Frodo, dude.
Frodo says, I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had happened. And then Gandalf says, so do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. Now, I watched this movie last night. I told you that every time I watch these movies now, at least once, and I can never predict it, at least once I cry. Like, just, I never know when it's going to come. You know what I mean? Yeah. It can come at a weird, most of the time it's been like during one of Sam's like heartfelt speeches. This time it was that moment. Like when Gandalf said that, I fucking just broke into tears. And it was like, I was kind of doing that thing where I was like, I can't believe I'm crying. And then this morning when I was typing up this outline and I typed up that quote, I was like, what the fuck? I started crying again. So I wanted to like talk about this through with you.
Yeah.
The reason I felt so much while watching this scene is because I kind of have that feeling that Frodo has, but I have it almost every day. And I'm sure other people have had it too, which is, why the fuck did I have to live through these times? Why did I have to live through the time where COVID exists? Why did I have to live through the time where our political climate is as such? Why did I have to live through times where social media exists? Yeah. You know what I mean? And global warming is at its worst. Like, everything is bad. It seems like that. It seems like everything is gone to shit. And I legitimately have asked myself that question in different words, but I'm just like, why? I've talked to my therapist about it. I know, like, I can tell myself the Holocaust existed. There's always been bad times in every generation, right? But when you're in that spiral mode, you're not thinking like that. You're narcissistic a little bit and only thinking of the time you live in. Mm-hmm. And I think something about this movie that I love is that it confronts that feeling so head on, and Lord of the Rings is entirely about that, of just like, you have to fight and earn for what you want. And yeah, it just fucking moves me, man. It gives me, I wouldn't say it gives me hope, but it gives me a little bit more courage to keep going when I watch this movie.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know a lot about J.R.R. Tolkien, you know, and his personal life. I know there's a lot out there about him, but I do know, you know, a lot of the emotions he wrote into Lord of the Rings was based off his time in World War One.
Yeah, he's a war vet. Yeah.
And he based a lot of the courage of the characters and stuff based off of people that he actually fought with, you know. And there's something also very timeless and moving about that because, yeah, like you said, you know, there's always horrible times. There's always really dark things that humanity will go through. And I always liked what Gandalf had to say in that moment too, when he says like there are more forces at work than just Sauron, you know?
Yeah.
Like basically saying there's other people fighting him. There's other things going on that you might not know about, but you might be just fixating on like the really dark stuff. But there's also good things happening to defeat it too, you know, and you're playing a vital role in that. You're part of that. And that's a kind of an amazing thing. Yeah. I mean, like this movie, man, this movie does that. And I totally agree with what you're saying. I think it's Ian McKellen's delivery too. Like Ian McKellen is so fucking good as Gandalf, and it's baffling. Like I cannot picture anyone else on planet Earth ever playing that role. And it's more of what I mentioned with Peter Jackson's directing too, that like he looks like he's had that beard for years. I don't know how that happens, but like even when he's fighting with Saruman and you see how scraggly and greasy his hair gets while they're fighting, like that's his hair. You know what I mean? I don't see that as a wig or a fake beard.
Something that I don't think enough people talk about is how awkward it must be to act with a big pointy hat and a staff and not look silly.
I know, and still be able to convey so much because you can't really see a lot of his face, right? You see his eyes and his smile.
I mean, Peter Jackson does give him glorious close-ups. Like he gives
dude, because he knows Ian McKellen can just slaughter those close-ups. Kind of, to be fair, there's a lot of great close-ups these characters get. Like every time it closes in on Aragorn's eyes, I'm like in love immediately. Or Kate Blanchett, I forget her character's name.
Galadriel?
Yeah. When it closes in on her, I'm like hypnotized.
Yeah, I like how this movie is just like, that is the most beautiful woman in the world. Like, and it's just Kate Blanchett who is. But it's like, you have to cast that role well to just be like, okay, she has to be able to sell that not only is she the most beautiful woman in the world, but she has the wisdom of thousands of years.
And is terrifying at the same time, too.
Oh, yeah. My God. Kate Blanchett's so good. I think she gets kind of underrated in this movie, but she's really good. Okay. I would love to talk about Viggo Mortensen so much, but I'm going to save a lot of it. I think we should save a lot of it for when we do Two Towers.
Okay. Cool,
Two Towers and Return of the King is for me when Viggo Mortensen...
Those are Viggo's movies, yeah.
Oh my God. But I will say this. And if you have something to add, please do. I'm not stopping you from talking about it. I will say this. Ever since you've grown your long hair, I've made Chris do the Aragorn opening the gates to Helm's Deep. Like that, like shot.
You made me do that.
This is Two Towers, but like, you know, that shot of like when like Aragorn is opening the gates and it's like kind of moving his hair
slow
a little
motion
bit.
With his hair dangling down like he's just coming in.
And ever since Chris has grown out his hair, I've made him do that so many times. I'm like, can you just do it? And you'll do it begrudgingly, but mostly just because you're like, I don't have his hair and I can't do it as well as he can.
I'm not nearly as sexy as he is in that movie for sure.
I want to ask you before. Moving on is, what does Lord of the Rings mean to you now? You know, like has it taken any new shapes like as you've gotten older? Because you said that early on, you're like, this movie changes for me as time goes by. Yeah. Right now, you're about to turn 30 in August, a big age. What does it mean to you right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think of it the same way, but on a smaller, more personal and intimate scale. That life will exhaust you and life will throw even without the political climate and all that stuff. I'm just saying, just dealing with the normal stresses of life, that like shit will be thrown at you all the time. And the importance of, you know, staying close to your companions and having people that have your back, that, you know what I mean, that are just unabashedly going to be there for you through thick and thin, and you're going to go through shit together. I think there's a lot of that I feel throughout while watching it. And so I get in a similar way to you, but on, like I said, just a smaller, just more casual life scale. You know what I mean? And even like, I noticed the first movie in particular deals with a lot of themes of power and, the race of men, how they can't handle power, and kind of like even what the meaning of what the allure of the ring itself is, of what it might be a metaphor of. And I'm sure it can mean something different for different people, right? But, the idea that it has this weird lust that people become fixated on and want to put it on, and it leads to evil. And some of that, I kind of want to hear some of your thoughts on that when it comes to, because I know, you have some interest in, with the way the world's turning to shit. And I know you have a lot of opinions on the greed of humanity and stuff. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that, of like what the ring itself means to you.
I think that it's really interesting what they explore in this movie. Something that you mentioned, Hugo Weaving's character saying that, like, I've seen men fall and be corrupted through the ring's power. And even the kind of tiny rift that Boromir and Aragorn have, of Aragorn not wanting to take the throne at Gondor, and Boromir is like, why have you lost complete trust in men? We can still do good. There's still good out there. And Aragorn just doesn't believe in it anymore. And Hugo Weaving doesn't believe it anymore. Like, there's this through line that the race of men have had their shot. Like, we've had their shot. We fucked it up. And we need to like figure out something else here.
Yeah.
And there's a strong case for that even now. And these movies make a strong case for that throughout. Even as someone as pure as Frodo gets corrupted at certain moments. And I think it's completely valid. I think anyone can get corrupted by the ring. Like, it's so easy. And maybe there's a handful of very pure people that power won't corrupt them, whether it be the ring or if we're talking about IRL, right? Like power won't corrupt them, but power exists to corrupt, in my opinion. Like, when we have those tools, when those tools exist, it exists to corrupt you. It is impossible. We live in a capitalist society where we draw certain lines, where I'm not going to Chick-fil-A because it's homophobic. I'm not going to read Harry Potter because of this. And I agree with that. I respect taking a stand. But then you also end up thinking, isn't every company, when you look into it, terrible? Like, Apple has, what kind of labor are they doing internationally that we don't know about?
That they just haven't publicly discussed.
What kind of shit is Amazon doing that a lot of it we know, but a lot of it we don't know, but we're still using Amazon every day. We don't draw the line there. And I'm not blaming anyone for not drawing the line, right? I'm just saying that that's kind of the world we live in. So sometimes it's impossible to think that there's any hope. I think what this movie reminds me of is that, like, there's no room for giving up here. Giving up is just not a choice. I am super cynical about the world. I'm cynical about, like, what's happened with technology and how it's completely corrupted us. I'm cynical about everyone that's in office, you know what I mean? And I'm like, no. I think what this movie reminds me of, like, no. It's giving up is not a choice, but also, like, the power of community. Like, we feel like we have to carry this burden alone. I feel that way all the time. I feel like sometimes, even though I'm not doing anything about it, the world's problems are on my shoulders and I can't do anything about it, so we're all hopeless. And this movie helps me also realize that, like, someone like Samwise will be there for you. Aragorn will give him his sword and his life for you.
And my axe.
Immediately how the Fellowship just, like, we're here. And Gandalf has that face, like, talking about Ian McKellen's close-up. When Frodo offers himself up, it cuts to that close-up of Gandalf. And in that close-up, if you want to talk about Ian McKellen's performance, in that close-up, Ian McKellen says it all. He knows how hard it is going to be on Frodo. He's kind of upset that Frodo had to be the one.
Yeah, I remember that little moment where you see his eyes just clearly worry about him.
And at the same time, he's so proud of his little hero, you know? And
well, it gets that way about the hobbits in general, too. Even Merry and Pippin, the way they just, like, they're like, we're coming with, and then they're like, where are we going? They don't even know what's going on, but they're just down for the adventure.
So I know I kind of rambled there, but as cynical as I am, this movie reminds me to not be.
Yeah. I get what you're saying, because I mean, I guess at the core of it, yeah, like the power and lust and allure of the ring in itself is a very universal feeling that I think anyone can connect to. So it's difficult to put into words, but there's a feeling there. Like you said, Boromir wanted to use it for their, like, we have an advantage against the enemy because this thing is so powerful. You know what I mean? He had good intentions, quote unquote. He wanted to use it for good. And even like that's why Gandalf said he didn't want to take it either, because he's like, I tried to use it for good and it would fuck me up,
Yeah, no, and like Galadriel just tells Frodo, like, you're gonna have to do this alone. Like, there's
Yeah.
no other way around this. You're gonna have to do this alone. And the fact that Frodo accepts that, goes for it, and Samwise still is like, I made a promise. I'm not leaving you. It's this like, it's disproving what Galadriel said, which is just like, no. There's this like, you don't have to be this alone. People will always be there for you. I mean, it's a shot that's been memed a lot. But if you want to talk about Return of the King, that moment where Aragorn is like, for Frodo, like, we're all doing this for him. Like, yes, he's helping us and he's gonna hopefully save the world, maybe, or save Middle Earth. But like, we're doing this for you, buddy. Like, we are here for you.
Yeah. Which, I mean, speaking of which, just I forgot how many memes are in this movie alone in Fellowship. I know you mentioned a meme that was in Return of the King, but I forgot how many visual images that I saw. I'm like, oh, that's a meme. Oh, that's a meme.
Yeah, there is.
But,
do you want to name? Do you want to name some?
yeah. I mean, like, there's the classics of Gandalf nodding, and they're doing the do.
Oh yeah. Of course.
And then there's also Boromir being like, one does not simply walk into Mordor.
That's probably the biggest meme, right?
That's
like,
probably the biggest one. Another one that I see a lot is when
sorry,
Gandalf
real quick. It's just really quick. It's just absurd how quickly that moment goes.
Oh, I know. It's such like a passing line in the movie.
Right.
It's like, it's so honed in on by the internet. But then there's also the part when Gandalf is looking around, when he's looking around in the mines of Boromir, and he just goes, I have no memory of this place, or whatever.
Oh yeah, I know.
And I think there's one more lurking in there somewhere that's not off the top of my head. And sound off in the comments if there's another meme in Fellowship that I don't remember.
Or your favorite Lord of the Rings meme, whatever.
Yeah.
I talked about how Frodo realizes that he doesn't have to go at it alone. The exact quote from Samwise is this: I made a promise, Mr. Frodo. A promise. Don't you leave Samwise Gamgee. And I don't mean to. And he's like crying. He can't swim, but he still goes for it. Samwise, like, again, Samwise is another one of those characters that we obviously everyone loves. But goddamn, it's the monologue in Two Towers that is just fucking floors me.
Sam will make you cry in all three movies to some extent. I think it's that moment in Fellowship, like you mentioned, when he like just runs straight into a body of water, not even giving a shit, because he's just sticking his neck out for Frodo because he knows that Frodo's going on a dangerous mission alone, and he's like, no, I'm coming with you. I don't know what to tell you. I forgot how he phrased it when he's like,
yeah, again, I like
I'm going to Mordor alone, and he's like, I know you are, and I'm coming with you.
I like your millennial phrasing of Lord of the Rings quotes. It's just like, yeah, man, I don't really care. I'm coming. But you should do a millennial Cliff Notes version of Lord of the Rings. I kind of like that.
Oh,
idea.
yeah. Just summarize them, and yeah, it'll sound way less cool.
And there's a lot of criticisms in there where there'll be moments where you're like, you get kind of exhausted of giving a summary, so you're just like, you know what happened. Yeah. Like,
yeah, and then Samwise picks him up and carries him up a mountain. But point is, though, Samwise, yeah, like, he is achingly authentic as a friend, and I don't think there's even words that I can put out that haven't already been said about Sam. We all collectively love Sam. Listeners, we all love Sam. It's not like I'm not interested in it, but it's more so of just like, come on, right?
Because this movie's a lot about realizing that you're not in it alone, and this entire series is about that. I know you've struggled in the past with asking for help, or like kind of reminding yourself that there is help out there. You've made this big move now, and you're making a lot of big life changes and doing a lot of things to better yourself. Would you say that like that part of yourself has like been improving?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm really trying to make a conscious effort to not just like ask people for help, but to not get in my own head so much. And I think that's kind of something about the character of Frodo that I kind of relate to on a fundamental level.
Oh, yeah.
Is that Frodo's always, I mean, and Frodo has a very specific burden that no one else will really understand. So he is truly alone. But I think I relate to thinking I'm like Frodo sometimes, in the sense of when I'm dealing with bullshit, I don't want to drag other people into it a lot of the time, and it's hard for me to really let my walls down and trust and feel like there are people that are going to stick their necks out for me. And I think that well enough about me. I have trouble with that stuff sometimes. I kind of, I can be a pretty guarded person when I'm making friends. And I keep like my real pool of people pretty small. Generally,
you definitely keep your pool of people small. I don't think that's a bad thing. I will say, for your sake, that though I've seen that change in you. I notice that like when you are going through a rough time, you will kind of express that to me a little bit more, and I know that's tough for you. And so like I did, it's funny. I did think about you a lot while watching this movie, like that specific feeling that you're talking about of Frodo just being like, I got to do this alone, or like Frodo just in his own head. And I thought a lot about, it reminded me of you in a sense of like, I know sometimes you feel that burden.
Yeah. I mean, I think whatever you want to call the burden, I think for me, just to kind of put it in layman's terms, sometimes it's just depression. Sometimes it's as simple as that. For me personally, sometimes I just get down on myself and, lack motivation and I kind of cocoon myself a little bit when I'm feeling down. I kind of avoid talking to people or really expressing myself. I kind of just cocoon and sabotage and eat like shit, treat my life like shit a little bit,
Well, that's why I love the moments where like Samwise is just like, oh, Mr. Frodo, you haven't eaten. I also noticed that you haven't been sleeping well.
Dude, I thought of you for that moment 100%. Sometimes I'll text you like, yeah, didn't have the best day. And you're like, you've eaten? And I'm like,
yeah, and he
thanks,
does that.
Man.
But like,
and I've done it for you too. We do that for each other.
There's an honesty about it. When someone keeps asking you if you eaten or sleep, you get kind of pissed. Like throughout the series, you could see Frodo getting kind of annoyed of Sam.
How much like Sam breathes down his neck a little bit.
But also like I think Frodo realizes that if he didn't have someone like Sam, he'd pass out. Like he wouldn't be able to do this. And so as I think what I like about Sam is that Sam knows that Mr. Frodo's not going to be like all happy and go lucky all the time, but I need to still be there for him. That's the shit that fucking gets me, is that in Two Towers and Return of the King, Frodo's not a good hang.
Yeah, he's a bit of a drag, isn't he?
Like the biggest drag for the right reasons, obviously, but Frodo's like horrible to be around, and Sam is still there. Sam is still fulfilling his promise. Also, I love just speaking of these friends like meeting each other and the fellowship kind of joining for the first time. There's something really special about seeing Gimli and Legolas for the first time and Boromir arrive. Like when they arrive, I'm just like, oh my God, my friends. Like,
I know, dude. And I know, listeners, we haven't really touched on Legolas and Gimli and Aragorn. Like I said, I feel like we can save those for when you cover Two Towers and Return more so right now.
But I'm bringing them up for a reason, because I think like I want to talk about how like Legolas and Gimli, it's so jarring to me to see them hate each other. Like,
and what's special about this movie in particular too, seeing them hate each other is great, because seeing where their friendship goes in the next movies is incredible. It's just, that shit brings a tear to my eye too. But I would also say like this is the only time the gang is all together. It kind of has like, it reminds me of when I first watched like A New Hope. How like everyone's together on this one adventure, and then in the next movies is when they're all separated and going in. You can really kind of isolate the characters and develop them in a deeper way. But this first one though is just so fun when they go to the mines, of mines of Moria. Mm-hmm. And by the time like all the Uruk-hai and the orcs come out, you see them all just fucking shit up together, fighting that cave troll. It's like it's just so cool seeing them all as like a unit just slaughtering through all the different orcs.
When they're like in the snow, Aragorn's carrying like 4 hobbits. Like he's just...
Oh, I know. I know. They just throw the hobbits across the stairwell.
Yeah. They treat the hobbits like they're cargo. Like which is what I like.
Oh, I know. And like how Boromir's trying to train Merry and Pippin to fight, and then they end up like wrestling a little bit.
The actors who play Merry and Pippin, I'm going to shout them out real quick. So it's Dominic Monaghan, who I love on Lost as well.
Yeah.
He's like a fan favorite in Lost too. He's like a really cool character.
Okay.
I know you haven't seen Lost, that's why I'm saying. But and Billy Boyd, who plays Peregrine Took. Also I'm obsessed with the way like Gandalf says Peregrine Took.
Yeah, fool of a took, or whatever he calls him later.
And Meriadoc Brandybuck. What was I gonna say? Those two actors have a travel show. Imagine just going into a pub in New Zealand and seeing those two.
Oh, I know. Well, I feel the way about kind of all of them, and that's a whole other conversation a little bit, but like all of the cast of this movie seems like they're all still pretty cool with each other, and they still make content together. They still do interviews and panels.
I don't like the phrase you use of they make content together, because now I'm thinking of them like... it just makes me sad to think about what if Viggo Mortensen, his career didn't go well and he started a podcast and a Patreon and like...
Oh, I was going to say, what if they all had like... Or do any of them have cameos?
I wouldn't doubt it.
I wonder.
But anyways, I think I wanted to mention Merry and Pippin though, specifically. I was like, those two actors at a pub, seeing them would be amazing just because... I've always wanted to party with Merry and Pippin. Like, they seem like a fucking blast.
Yeah. They are the most fun ones for sure.
Come on, second breakfast.
I know. That's another meme that's really iconic. What about second breakfast?
They're really great because they very often remind you of how special the Shire is.
Yeah.
Because sure, they're goofy. And, you know, they also just feel like, oh, they're comedic reliefs, but they also kind of are a healthy reminder of like what they're fighting for. Like what everyone's fighting for, what Merry and Pippin are, which is this like unabashed goofiness. This feeling of like, we just want to live. We want to eat. We want to drink. We want to smoke weed. But we have to fight.
Yeah. I mean, the Shire itself is such an interesting world or interesting, whatever, city, land, I don't know what you call it, but like...
It's the best place in the world. It's the fucking best place. My bucket list is to visit New Zealand and visit the Shire. Like, I want to go so bad.
Yeah, I mean, this movie also gives me complex feelings when it comes to like how people want to live, because... Sometimes, you know, I think I've talked about this in previous episodes a while back, but, you know, I'm usually a champion of like keeping your life simple if you can, you know, like I don't think, you know, I think I'm only speaking as like an LA, you know, person sometimes because we're around people that are always so ambitious and want to sacrifice social life so they can hustle and grind and build. And sometimes I think the most pure thing you can have in your life, and that's irreplaceable, is like personal relationships. Sometimes like when it comes to bigger things that you want to go out and do or bigger responsibilities, you know, I think like, oh, I think it's okay to strip your life back and kind of have something nice and simple and realize what you actually have that's around you and not miss out instead of being present. But I think this movie also makes a case very much for like I said, kind of off the top of this, like, sometimes shit happens, how my millennial way of phrasing it, you know, sometimes in order to preserve your simple life, you have to go and protect that, you know, you have to fight for it.
You have to get out of your comfort zone. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
No, I agree. I often fantasize about living a simpler life that's not so career oriented, and maybe one day I will. I think it's a healthy balance because I do enjoy being ambitious and wanting something big, growing this podcast or getting back into writing and eventually getting back into filmmaking. I have these like, I still have that feeling of like, I want to chase after something. And I know you and I are kind of different in that sense too, which is also fine. But I still have this like fire under me where I do want to chase something after something bigger. And at the same time, my goal in life would be to eventually come at peace, you know? So I'm always conflicted. I'm conflicted of whether I want to live in the Shire or not, you know? But when I watch this movie, I'm like, I completely understand why hobbits don't want to get involved. Like,
They're these tiny little dudes that have such peaceful, simple lives.
That party is such a great party. That party is such a great party, dude.
Oh, I know, right? Yeah, I mean, I saw like a meme or some tweet or something like that. It says like, why did Gandalf think it was a good idea to bring like a dragon-shaped firework when like he took Bilbo on an adventure to fight a fucking dragon, and Bilbo might be a little traumatized by that?
Because Gandalf likes having fun. Gandalf has that kind of, not to compare the two, because I know people can get annoyed by this, but like, Gandalf has that Dumbledore quality to him where I'm like, sure, he's a wise old sage, but he's also kind of this like stinker. He makes jokes and
kooky.
He has fun, but he's also What of Cheap Tricks?
Oh, yeah. Do not take me for some conjurer of cheap tricks.
He's not some conjurer of cheap tricks either. So yeah, that's all I was gonna say.
Yeah, I mean, well, the funny thing is Bilbo's also like the least affected by it when the dragon firework goes off. Bilbo, remember how Bilbo's like, nonsense, there hasn't been a dragon for this long. Like, he doesn't give a shit.
Oh, okay. I want to talk about this. There are very few. So you mentioned towards the beginning of this podcast when you were talking about how it changed you, of how this movie felt so big when you were 6 years old. Like there was nothing like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you do as well. I watch this movie, and especially when we get to like Helm's Deep and then the Return of the King and all that stuff. It still feels big in a way that feels so unique. I don't see movies that go at this kind of scale that often. I listed off some movies that felt as epic as this in the past, that came out in the past like 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
I put RRR, Avengers Endgame, and Mad Max Fury Road. Those are the and you know what? I'll put this, like both Avatar movies. I do feel like do that. Avatar and Avatar: The Way of Water. Like these are movies that I still feel capture in a small way, but in a way what Lord of the Rings did, which is holy shit. It's like fully encompassing. I care about the people that are on screen, and in my opinion, the movie that does it best is RRR, because that's also an original story, and RRR captures like the emotional feeling that you get when you watch Lord of the Rings, where it's like, yes, there's this epic scale, but I also feel and care so much about these people. And RRR also captures the aching sincerity between the male friendship. You know?
Yeah, you're still rooting for them to win, and you're still on the edge of your seat, and you still genuinely care about what's going on. You get used to the action language. I know what you call. We covered RRR.
No. Action language is a great way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, like you get used to the way it portrays action, right? Because that movie's so over the top. Whatever, right? That the RRR is RRR. But you get used to it, and you roll with it, and you become genuinely invested in it, and you end up having like an actual, like emotional reaction to what's going on in the characters. I mean, another movie to add to that list that you mentioned is definitely Dune 1 and 2.
Yeah, especially 2. Specifically 2, I feel like.
Sure.
1 has a little bit more of a contained story, because it's like dealing with the Atreides house, and it's like a lot of throne room scenes, which is fine. 2 is like they blow it up to like the Fremen riding sandworms, and you get to know about these different cultures in this world.
Yeah. We got to cover Dune at some point.
Then the Harkonnen like gladiator world or whatever. That's insane. Where it's all like the sun is bleached out or something.
Yeah.
Remember where Lea Seydoux is like kind of trying to seduce Austin Butler, and there's like they're in that hallway, but they look like chess pieces because that's how it was designed.
Yeah.
We got to cover Dune.
We got to cover Dune. Let's cover Dune at some point.
I'm reading the Frank Herbert like the book.
Yeah. I know.
It's great. It's a good book. I don't know if you knew that.
I don't know if y'all knew, but Dune?
The music, I just want to give a shouty to Howard Shore. Like you said, like that music makes you feel so much. Like
Dude, I know. The music is absurd.
I might be underrating the conversation surrounding the Lord of the Rings music, but people always talk about how Star Wars is nothing without the music. Mm-hmm. I think the same thing with Lord of the Rings as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
These movies are nothing without that music. And I know maybe it's not in the conversation as much because Lord of the Rings were books as well, so there's proof that like without the visual component it still works, but still.
But still, to translate that into a movie, into a different medium, and to still convey the same feelings, it just through music, just through a sound, it's pretty incredible, you know.
Who are you in the Fellowship?
Right
now, at this stage of your life, who are you in the Fellowship?
I don't mean this in a good way, but I might be closer to a Frodo. I can be kind of the bitchy, brooding one. That's.
Well, we talked a little bit about it in Forgetting Sarah Marshall. You're going through a lot in your life right now, so it's like it makes sense, you know.
Yeah, maybe so. You know,
it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I guess I'm just, I'm just saying. I'm trying to make it clear. Like, I'm not saying like I'm a main character. Like I have to have all this burden.
You're not having main character energy. I got you. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, would you agree, or do you think there's anyone else that you think of? Like, am I Boromir? Am I like the guy who's wrong, but or like hates being right, but has to say what has to be said?
Yeah, you're probably a balance between Boromir and you're probably a balance between Boromir. I wouldn't say you're Boromir though, because Boromir's pretty steadfast and you're not steadfast. I'm not saying this to just smoke you up a little bit, but I do feel like you have like an Aragorn quality about you. And here's why. I think Aragorn is someone that is not narcissistic. He is someone that is very loyal, and he's someone who's not afraid to like confront something. You know what I mean? He's like, we need to get this done. It's whatever. But he still has a heart. And I feel like you are those things as much as you are brooding sometimes.
I appreciate that. I think like Aragorn's thing is like what, makes him such a compelling character is that he's really good at separating himself from things. When it comes to like the ring or the way they have to protect the hobbits, like he doesn't really put his ego in front of anything or have his own agenda. Or even the fact that he's the rightful heir to be, king because he's a descendant of Isildur. The fact that like he doesn't have any desire to be part of that and just wants to kind of do his own thing.
See that specifically what you just located. That's you. Like if you have no like desire to just be like, I need to take this for myself, or I really need this to happen for myself. Like even I have that quality sometimes, and I have to work towards not having it. But like, I think you naturally are someone that doesn't chase after something for himself.
Maybe so. Yeah. I mean, I'm very much like a thinker first, like I really like to process information before making decisions. And that's sometimes too like a fault. Sometimes like I'll be under pressure and I'll be like, I care so much about doing the perfectly right thing.
So I'm going to say who I think I am.
Okay. Then, I was about to turn the question to you. You have an answer?
And then you tell me if I'm right or if you think there's something else.
Okay,
here.
Cool. Yeah, go for it.
I think I'm Gimli.
Okay, in what ways? Describe.
I care a lot about the people that I am attached to. Like I really like, I care about my tribe, At the same time, I do for better or for worse, I do kind of feel like I have a chip on my shoulder all the time. Like I think with my emotions a lot. I think with anger, and I think like I get heated very quickly, and
you can be a little short-tempered. Yeah, I got you.
I let that control me. And Gimli's all those things, and he's still got a heart, and he still cares about the people that are close to him. But his flaws are his flaws, and I think I share them.
I think what it is like you and Gimli are both very passionate people. You both have like your causes that you really care about, but I think when it comes to emotional regulation, sometimes it's like your passion comes at a little bit of a cost to trade off.
And what I like about Gimli is that it takes like other people leading by example for him to come out of his own ways.
Sure, that's very true. Yeah,
and I have found that for me to get out of my own head and for me to like move away from what I believe, I have to surround myself with people who are not yes men,
Mm-hmm. And that's something you value too. Like we've talked about this off mic, but you really value like people who are authentic and say things that they actually believe and not just regurgitate what other people say.
That's why we've stayed friends for so long. Yeah.
Yeah. But I've seen you have very visceral reactions to when people regurgitate like something that was clearly ripped off of a Reddit comment section or a YouTube comment section when they're sharing their opinion about things. And I think it comes from probably a biased standpoint because you and I are on the internet. So we see all online discourse all the time, but you value like real people. And I think that's something Gimli really values too. I think that's why he ends up getting, his friendship with Legolas ends up growing throughout the series is because he ends up seeing other sides to Legolas and getting him to come out of his like very stoic and robotic, prim and proper shell that Legolas typically has.
We've talked about this before, but Legolas is definitely a character I loved when I was younger. And now as I'm older, I'm like, he's probably the least interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he's still great, and I still like when I see him, I love it. But like, Orlando Bloom is still great, but it's like also there's not much there.
Yeah, he's there, but he's just not as interesting as the other ones. I get it. I would say your combination, though, of this is an obvious one, but your combination of Gimli and Sam for sure.
Oh
You know?
man, I wasn't
Yeah.
even gonna like give myself Sam just because I'm like I respect Sam so
No,
much.
but I mean, I've seen it, man. I mean, like, I can't not say. I mean, if we're gonna compare me to fucking Frodo, we're there already. But
yeah,
like,
yeah. I love how I'm like, yeah, and Chris, you're definitely not Sam. Like, I'm just no, you have been Sam to me before, just to clarify.
yeah,
Anyways.
we've been each other's Sams for sure, and I think everyone should try to have a little bit of Sam in them. You know, that's the classic regurgitated comment is people say like everyone says they need a friend like Sam, but we should all strive to be like Sam. You know,
It's true, but I wanted to say I interrupted you because you were about to say something really nice about me, and I need you to continue. I don't want you to get sidetracked.
I don't want to derail this. I want to hear what you have to say about this. But no, I mean, like I've seen it. You know, like I've seen your unapologetic loyalty to me as a friend. You know, there have been times I have fucked up or been in a certain mood or said things, and you know, you've stuck your neck out for me still in ways that no one else ever has, where you know, you thought like, you know what, Chris is just going through this, I'm still his friend, I know his heart well enough. You know what I mean? Like, you're, at least when it comes to like our friendship, but when, you know, if you want to compare it directly to the Sam and Frodo dynamic, when it comes to the dynamic of Sam and Frodo, I think Sam truly sees Frodo in his heart, and that's what, like, he moves all the bullshit aside of what
Yeah.
they're going through, what, you know, what struggles are in, and he's like, I see you, and like, I'm sticking with you through this because I'm keeping my, you know, like, I'm keeping my tribe small, and you're my guy. You know what I mean?
I was gonna say the same thing about you as well. Is that like I've had like I lead with my emotions. I think with my emotions for better or for worse, and you've been a great friend in dealing with that. And I think the thing that we both give each other when you said we've been each other's Sams, the thing that we both give each other is this fact of like, listen, buddy, we got each other. Like, through thick and thin, this is it. Like, we're gonna like this is literally it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think when Sam gives that speech towards the end of Fellowship, that's kind of what it is. Of like, I promised Gandalf, and I'm not gonna break that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, their friendship is one of those, you know, it's a top tier movie friendship. I don't think there's a single friendship in movies that really tops it the same way they get Sam and Frodo.
All right, Chris, is there anything you want to add before we get into write-ins?
Shouty to Gandalf, smoking and exhaling a boat.
Just, I know, it's so cool.
Just him and Bilbo just vibing on a hill.
Shout out to weed being so prominent in the Shire.
Well, it's not like marijuana weed. It's like a special Middle Earth weed. It's like a type of fictional plant, you know?
I know, but still, you know. I know you can't get it at like Sunset Herbal or something like that, but like LA dispensary.
I do like the idea though of like being like, this is, can I sell you an eighth, Mr. Frodo?
Yeah. Like Merry and Pippin explaining to Gandalf. So like, no, this is like a body high.
Gandalf, this is a dab hit.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man.
Just see them eating edibles just laying there.
That's really good. I like that. They took too much. Okay.
Did you take too much, Gandalf? Just picturing like old Ian McKellen all scared. He's like in his underwear out of his robe. Just
You know Ian McKellen like parties though. That guy's
yeah, of course.
So we asked you guys to write in at moviesthatchangedus@gmail.com and let us know how Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring changed you. If you want to write us in next time we pod about a movie, you can follow us on Instagram at Movies That Changed Us, on Patreon at Movies That Changed Us, and subscribe to this channel. The first write-in is by Scott Waterman. I want to say that this is his first time writing in, so Scott, welcome. For me, it was the way the material was handled. I've always loved fantasy, but very few fantasy films seem to take it seriously and not make it cutesy. Willow was a great fantasy film. Have you ever seen Willow?
No, I've heard a lot about it though. I know that's
Same.
a classic. I don't know if it's supposed like I remember. I want to say like critic reviews weren't great on it, but a lot of people seem to be fond of it. So I'd like to see it to have my own opinion.
Oh yeah, it has a big cult following. Yeah.
Yeah.
They even did like a Disney Plus show that I think is like They did one season of the Disney Plus show, and they just now have completely wiped it off of Disney Plus, I think.
Wow. Okay.
Which is like, people were upset by that. But anyways, Willow was a great fantasy film. Dungeons and Dragons, which had come out the year before, was dreadful. Wow, yeah, the early 2000s Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
I was 19 when the first Lord of the Rings was released, and I had seen the trailers, but very few of the trailers had any real special effects in them, so my hopes weren't too high. Then, opening night, I remember being at the theater for the midnight release, sitting in the auditorium, and the opening narration, some shots of the ring, and then this massive sweeping camera shot over the field of battle with thousands of combatants fighting. I was floored. I think the saying, never seen anything like it before, is greatly overused. But here, damn. This wasn't some cheesy, low-budget fantasy film with high-pitched goblins or elves and lackluster effects. This was fucking epic. This showed me that a fantasy movie could be made seriously and still be a great film.
It's so true. It's so true, Scott. I mean, like I said, I was 6 years old when I saw that, and that was insane. I remember, like, my friends and I all talked about how crazy that movie was.
What I think we didn't mention enough of is just the fact that Peter Jackson really... This is one of the last, like, I think, mainstream blockbusters, again, aside from RRR and Avatar, where it feels like, even though Lord of the Rings was adapted material, it feels like, oh, this is made by a person that, like, had this in his head. Like, when you watch Lord of the Rings and you see the sweeping shots and you see Isildur slicing off the finger from Sauron, and you see this, like, epic scale, you're like, this has been in Peter Jackson's head forever,
Oh yeah, I know. And like how it's also like Scott said, how brutal and gritty it is. Like this is like a really small touch, but this goes back to what I said earlier about the fingernails, is when they first, loosen the arrows, when they first fire all the arrows. Remember how, why am I drawing a blank on his name? Agent Smith, Mr.
Yeah, Hugo Weaving.
Remember how Hugo Weaving like flinches a little when the arrow whizzes by his ear?
Yeah.
I love that small touch. I'm like, I don't see that in a lot of other movies that have like it feels like a person. You know what I mean? It feels like people are fighting.
100%. Okay, you want to read the next one?
This one is by Siri Jenkins. And it's funny, I said that out loud and I activated the Siri on my phone, so alas. It says, "Hi, I really enjoy your videos and podcast. You first caught my attention when you watched Robin Hood Men in Tights. Awesome film and so fun watching you see it for the first time. Thank you so much." You. That was a fun reaction to shoot too.
That's a fun movie.
Yeah. Reading on. "This might be a bit strange, but I'm not sure if it was the Lord of the Rings themselves that changed me, but the extra features. The behind-the-scenes recordings, the way the story was crafted by so many people, the meticulous and delicate work and care that came together to create something that so many people loved. I just found that extraordinary that so many people would direct their time and attention towards something like that. Just incredible. It made me think about the nature of work and passion and how those things can intersect if you are lucky."
Okay, great conversation point brought up by this person, just because I forgot to bring that up. So people can probably see right here on my bookshelf, I placed the Lord of the Rings Extended Edition trilogy box set over here. So a thing about Lord of the Rings that became just as famous as these movies and just as well respected is the BTS. Like, if you watched, like, the featurettes, which I don't know if you have, maybe you've seen clips of it on YouTube.
I've seen clips on YouTube, that's it, yeah.
There's, like, hours and hours worth of, like, behind-the-scenes stuff, to the point where there's filmmakers that have come up watching those things and have said, like, I forget who it is, but there was this independent filmmaker that was at South by and was talking in an interview how watching the Lord of the Rings behind-the-scenes featurette is what inspired him to become a filmmaker. Like, those extra special features have a life of their own and have a fandom of their own,
That's crazy. I mean, yeah, and you can feel it just watching how much love was put into it for every part of the craftsmanship. Like, particularly, like, we didn't really mention it much, but I do want to give a shouty as well to just the creature effects. Like, the orcs and the Uruk-hai still look fucking incredible.
So good.
Baffling they pulled it off. It's like, to me, that movie has by far my favorite, fantasy creature effects. Like, I would even say it's superior to Star Wars, which might be maybe that's sacrilege. But when it comes to creature effects, I think Lord of the Rings, there's nothing that tops it, in my opinion. Nothing has been better in terms of being believable and standing the test of time the way Lord of the Rings does.
Yeah, man. I mean, I can't really argue with that. I have to think about if I like fully agree with it, but like I can't argue with that notion because it's like amazing. I apologize if I'm pronouncing this wrong, but Michaela Register. So Michaela, I trimmed down your email, but I appreciate you because what this person did, Chris, is they wrote a big email and then they bolded the part saying that like, if you can't include all of this, just include this bolded part. Appreciate it. Also, just know I read your entire email and I really appreciate it, and I appreciate your thoughts.
I will read your full email after this, Michaela. Thank you for writing in.
So the thing I love most about the trilogy is its heart and wisdom. It is one of those rare stories that feels alive and full of timeless wisdom. Every rewatch, something hits differently. Gandalf's talk with Frodo in the Mines of Moria, Sam's unwavering loyalty, Pippin and Merry and Sam never hesitating to jump into action to protect Frodo, despite having zero fighting experience and clearly being scared shitless. Yes, when the big goblin attacks Frodo, Merry and Pippin just look at each other and then they just jump on the goblin immediately.
Oh yeah, they just go for it.
And you know they have zero fighting chance, but they're like doing it. Anyways, continuing. Arwen ready to give up immortality for one lifetime with Aragorn? I mean, that's like, wouldn't we all?
I know.
The less perfect characters resonate in a different way. Frodo was my favorite character by the end, as I strongly related to his struggle with the ring, seeing it in my own struggles with mental health and specifically depression.
Shouty to you, Michaela.
Yeah, shouty to you.
I feel you.
Him leaving his friends behind at the end, trying to protect them determined to make it alone, is something I still do too often, though I'm lucky enough to have Sams in my life who stubbornly insist on coming along to help me when I can't help myself anymore. The scene at Mount Doom where Frodo is hanging off the edge of the cliff and clearly contemplating letting go resonates for the same reason. Okay, so once again, similar to the last, like our School of Rock podcast, the last email we read coincidentally summed up our entire episode.
I know, right?
Where I'm like, this email that we just read, I'm like, basically exactly what we said in the past hour, but more concise.
I love Michaela's way of phrasing it, though. Like people who stubbornly help when you can't help yourself anymore. That's very much from the perspective of someone who's in the thick of it. I understand that feeling. Altaf, you motherfucker have stubbornly like tried to reach out or help me on things when I'm like, no, let me destroy myself. Leave me alone.
And it's exactly what I was talking about. How like Sam will be like, I noticed you haven't eaten. I noticed you haven't slept, Mr.
Exactly.
Frodo. And Frodo's like, I'm okay, Sam. Like he's just so
I know. Fuck off wanting the best for me.
I know. So thank you all so much for writing in.
Yeah.
Chris,
thank you.
Do you have anything else you want to say about Fellowship of the Ring?
Honestly, not much. My voice is starting to fall apart a little bit, so I'm kind of hesitant to talk anymore. But no, I love doing this podcast. I'm really glad we did it. This is a movie that I think you and I have wanted to cover for a while that hits near and dear for us in different ways. And I can tell our listeners were excited for this one too by the way they wrote about it in the emails and there were comments saying like, oh, this is going to be a good one. You know?
Yeah, we got emails quick too. Like we were.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you guys for writing in. We want to do more movies like this and this caliber that you guys are going to be excited about too. So
yeah, I am interested to hear if there's any movies people really want us to cover in the comments section, like on this podcast. Because when we used to do reactions, we used to get like requests all the time. And if there's a movie that you really want us to cover, put in the comments. And if Chris and I feel like it fits the show, we'd love to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But don't think too hard about it. Just put your favorites in the comments section.
Yeah.
We'd love to read them.
Just dump them.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to our patrons for supporting us again and again. We really appreciate it. Last but not least, stay nice, dudes.